You're listening to Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com. Clutch with Keon Rose here on 92.7 FM. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate each and every one of you. Now, look, here's the deal. SEC might be on fire. And the reason why I think that the SEC might be on fire is I got a sports update on Saturday night. Because I get sports updates from everywhere, right? Like I've got my CBS sports update. I've got my Google alerts. I've got an SEC country sports update that'll come to my phone. Like if there's a place where sports updates come from, I am probably subscribed to one of those things because I'm horribly addicted to this and I got problems. I got it, right? So here I am reading one of the 100,000 sports updates that I get. I didn't know where this one came from. I don't recall exactly, but it was a writer who was pondering this idea that half of the SEC could be with new coaches. I thought, well, that sounds ridiculous, right? And very often I will bring to this show, I read, right? Articles that I read and disagree with, and I bring it to the show because I just think, oh, this is just silly. And I think you guys, when you see or hear something that's silly and ridiculous, or you react similarly, because a lot of the sports media are pretentious sports people just sort of bloviating on their own opinions. That's just where we've wound up. And when I see something that's ridiculous, like you just point it out. Like, why can't you just watch sports like a normal person? Why do you have to be here coming up with 13 different storylines for why, I don't know, name a coach is going to get fired? Like, why did you dream up 13 scenarios? Why did you dream up 14 guys who could replace him even though he still has a job? Like, why are you doing this? Why can't you enjoy sports like normal people enjoy sports? Because they're sports writers. Like, that's just what they do. They can't enjoy sports the way the rest of us enjoy it. They got to enjoy it by coming up with storylines that only they made up. But anyway, I was reading one of these, and I thought, well, this is one of those ridiculous things. I'm going to bring it to the show. Only, you know what? I agree. Yeah. I didn't see that one coming either. I'm prepared to fight everybody on everything. And I read that, and I was like, actually, that makes a ton of sense. And the reason why it makes a ton of sense is because the SEC might actually be on fire. You have to acknowledge that concept. The SEC might actually be on fire because there are a number of these teams that are pretty good. But the ones that aren't pretty good are awful. And look, there's always going to be a hierarchy, but there's no reason for the middle of your conference to be bad, right? Like the top of the conference is Alabama and Georgia. That's it. Right? Plus, Miss State and Texas A&M, they're not bad. They're pretty good. State beating Texas A&M 35-14 to improve to 6-2. You've got a nice top layer, and you've got the beginnings of a decent middle layer. Miss State, A&M, I know South Carolina struggles a bit, but they're 6-2, and overwhelmingly they're solid, right? Which is not the description you want when you root for a team. Nobody wants their team described as being solid. Solid is almost as insulting as bad, but solid is not bad. Arkansas, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Florida are bad. They're bad, right? Georgia was giving Florida that work on Saturday in a way that is horrifying, right? I went back and watched that game again today, and it was an absolute bloodletting. In the most disturbing sense of that word. I mean it to sound bad. It didn't look like Florida was capable of being in the same stadium with this school. Like, you did not realize, like, you could have been mistaken if you were flipping through the channels and you were watching these two teams play, that you were watching a Power 5 conference play some FCS school, right? Because Florida didn't look like they belonged in the same conference with Georgia, which is a testament to how good Georgia's been this season, right? Georgia is really good. They smashed through Florida. And like I said, it was going to happen. I understand that Vegas had Georgia at 13.5 points. Now, I think that was them overestimating Florida more so than they were underestimating Georgia. But the fact remains that while that game was happening, okay, I was getting updates and alerts about Florida and Jim McElwain. They were talking to his agent during the game. Do you understand? The game was still happening. They were in the fourth quarter, and they were talking about moving on from Jim McElwain while the game was happening. Do you understand how terrible that is? They didn't wait to part ways with Jim McElwain. For me, I'm about trying to figure out whether or not to fire a guy mid-season or at the end of the season, right? Like, there are some things you just got to fire a guy mid-season. If he's got misconduct, right? If he's been a terrible person, you got to fire that guy in the middle of the season. If he seems to not have control of the locker room, players are getting arrested, that guy's got to be gone mid-season, right? But if you are a dumpster fire and the coach is just not winning football games, like, you're not going to win more football games firing a guy in the middle of the season. I think that looks bad to recruits. Just let the guy coach till the end of the season and then fire him at the end of the season. Like, I never understood mid-season firings where you didn't think you could make the playoff or you didn't think you could really compete for a postseason. And Florida's in danger of not being able to do that. Now 3-4. Now, granted, Florida offensively is not great, but very few teams are going to make Florida look as bad as Georgia did. Georgia's defense is the real deal. Like, they're legitimate. But still, I have never come across a situation where the conversation we were having was, do we fire this guy during or after the game? The game. I've never had that conversation. Never had that conversation before in my life. I've never seen that before. Maybe, because it's possible, I'm just young, right? And there are more experienced sports fans out there who have seen more than I have seen, right? Like, we have people here that work at this station that, like, just encyclopedic knowledge of things going way back, right? Like the 80s and 70s. The relative brevity of my life does not give me that as a possibility. But I will say this. I've never seen that before my whole life, right? 27 years is young, but it's not nothing. I've never seen that in my whole life. A guy having his agent called while he's coaching the team. They can't wait for him to finish coaching the game, right? Now, again, Georgia was making them look bad, walking through fools, right? Like, Sony Michel looked borderline untackleable in that game. And we all know what the deal is. Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, those aren't human beings. Those are horses. Those are horses, man. Sony Michel is a horse because you can't just tackle him. Florida was trying to stick their arms out there and arm tackle him. No, not possible. You are not about to bring that guy down with just an arm tackle. He just walked through him. Right? Like with how often and the frequency to which Sony Michel found himself in the second level of Florida's defense, Florida ought to charge him rent. He was living there so often. He was there all the time. That was the game. That was the ball game. Oh, look, Sony Michel's in the second level of this defense again. I mean, it's insanity. right? So we're talking about a situation where Jim McElwain out of the house, right? Florida, Jim McElwain parting ways because we never found that right moment with Jim McElwain. And here's the thing, too, because I've been a defender of Jim McElwain, but I'm not also like defending. I'm not going to defend him after he's gone. Because I will say that Florida did have some gripes, some legitimate gripes with Jim McElwain that them moving on from him made perfect sense. For instance, here's one. Where is our offense? We hired you to coach the offense. Where on earth is our offense? And you could make the excuses for Jim McElwain and say, well, Jim McElwain is an offensive guy. And what do all offensive guys need? All offensive guys need quarterbacks. They need quarterbacks to be able to get that offense together, have a signal caller, get somebody with a strong arm who can push you down the field and open up plays for you. That's what you want offensively. So if you are Florida, you're like, that's what we hired you to do. And you did not do that. Where on earth is our offense? Oh, well, I didn't have a quarterback. Man, this ain't the NFL. Recruit one. Right? Like in the NFL, you got to draft a guy. And if you're just not in the position to draft a guy, you don't draft a guy. Or if you think that there's a guy that's available to be a quarterback and you don't think he's any good, you don't draft the guy. Right? And you could go through a couple of years where we just don't have good quarterback drafts. That's happened. You have a couple of dud years of quarterback drafts. And if you just don't think, hey, we don't have a good guy in the draft, you don't draft the guy. And that's why I empathize very strongly with the plight of the Cleveland Browns, because the Browns passed on guys that they could have drafted because they didn't see it in those guys. I get it. You just, like in the NFL, you just sort of take what college gives you. In college football, if the guy's out there, recruit him. And if you don't recruit him, that's on you. Part of your job is not just coaching, it's recruiting. So if your excuse is, oh, well, I didn't have the quarterback, that's also a you problem. Where on earth is my offense? I asked for an offense. I paid you money to give me an offense. And this entire time, the defense has been borderline lights out until yesterday. And I still don't have an offense. Where on earth is my offense? Half your players are suspended because they tried to scam the system and see if they could get a couple of university credit cards, get more than one so they could have extra money. Where is my offense? Because if that's the reason why you don't have an offense, that's still a you problem. Get your locker room under control. Where's my offense? So Florida wanted to walk away from Jim McElwain. Look, I get it. I can't blame him. Like, how much more time are you going to give the guy? Where was he going to materialize this quarterback from? You know, Florida could have had Jake Fromm. Jake Fromm, again, did not throw the ball a ton in that game. But he had, like he does every week, he has some monster throws. Right? Jake Fromm threw 7 passes and completed 4. This is starting to become our standard Jake Fromm stat line. He completes anywhere from 4 to like 11 passes. He throws anywhere from 7 to 14, about 100 yards, regardless of how many times he throws it. Maybe a touchdown, maybe an INT. That's our Jake Fromm stat line. Because they don't ask him to do anything. Why? Why on earth would you have to if your backfield consisted of Sony Michel and Nick Chubb and Elijah Holyfield? Why would you ever have to? Right? That's why Jim McElwain's gone, right? Jim McElwain is gone because the thing that Florida was paying him to do, he wasn't able to do it. They paid you for that offense. Where's the offense, right? And you can make the same comment about Butch Jones and Tennessee, right? Butch Jones not the play caller, but he's an offensive guy. Where's the offense, dude? Why is it that we are kicking field goals most of the game? Why is it that we can't, when we get into the red zone, ever find pay dirt? Like, I can understand Tennessee's frustration with Butch Jones too. Now I'm a little happier with the fact that Tennessee is trying to air out these grievances after the season. It's like, well, you can't fix what's happening here. This 3-5 situation that Tennessee has found themselves in, where, you know, you're losers of 4 in a row and 5 of your last 6. This is not good. This is not good at all. Right? You're looking at Missouri. Missouri beats UConn on Saturday, 52-12. But somebody tell me, is Missouri cool with just housing really bad teams and losing in conference? Because you realize when Missouri joined the SEC, they had back-to-back 10-win campaigns when they first joined this league. And we thought, wow, here comes Missouri. A formidable opponent has been added to this conference, and they ain't done nothing since. Nothing. And they are now on their third coach since this has happened. And at some point, you have to go, what's wrong with Missouri? And maybe we move on from that, because this team did used to, once upon a time, be a good football team. And they have not begun to round the corner under Barry Odom as head coach. Like, just not even at all. Kevin Sumlin, even though Texas A&M lost, we'll see how the rest of A&M's season goes. But Kevin Sumlin hasn't been removed from the hot seat. Like, people say, oh, he might have saved his job with that Alabama game where his team looked competent, and he might have saved his job with the overwhelming part of this season being really good. But I don't believe that Kevin Sumlin has saved his job yet. Like, if we get to the end of this season, somehow Texas A&M has got 10 wins, then you're like, okay, you know what? Or not 10 wins. If somehow Texas A&M has got like 9 wins, you got to look at Kevin Sumlin and go, okay, I guess we might have to consider keeping this dude. But even then, A&M was like, he's going to have to do a lot to keep the job. He's going to have to do a lot. And while Kevin Sumlin has looked really good, I don't think Kevin Sumlin has put on the kind of head coaching performance that changes the mind of people who want you all up out the door. Like, I just don't see it. I could be wrong about that. I just don't see it. So we're talking about A&M might have a new coach. We're talking about Tennessee might have a new coach. We're talking about Florida might have a new coach. I don't know what you do if you're Vandy. They're 3-5, but it's like every time I watch them play, they don't look horrible to me. Arkansas might have a new coach. Ole Miss will, right? Like, Matt Luke would really have had to impress there in order to save his job. Like, we're looking at a situation where half the SEC might have all their coaches replaced. That is insanity. It's absurd. Like, I've never seen a conference where you look from top to bottom and go, all these coaches. Now, Kirby Smart looks like the real deal. And you know why? Because Kirby Smart is doing the thing that they paid him to do. And you think it's just win football games. But it's not just win football games. It's not. That's part of it. But when you come in, they ask you to win football games in a very particular kind of way. And this is the reason why Jim McElwain was never, ever comfortable at Florida. Because he's an offensive guy, and he never got the offense together. So even when they won the East one year and then won the East again, he never got that offense together. It was never because of the offense. And so because it was never because of the offense, when they went to the title game and played Alabama, no one could reasonably say, oh, Florida's got a shot here. Because Florida wasn't even playing to the identity that the coach was hired to give them. And it could be because he never found his quarterback. But that's also his fault. When you look at Georgia and you look at Kirby Smart, they hired Kirby Smart to make Georgia another Alabama. And for better or for worse, it's working. Georgia looks like a powerhouse. They gut people when they play them. You can't tackle their running backs. Their quarterback is good, but doesn't really have to throw the ball. Their defense is lights out and amazing. Might be one of the fastest defenses I've ever seen. I mean, they smother people. They just smother people. I like Felipe Franks, that poor kid, was just getting work. The University of Florida owes Felipe Franks money for damages to that young man's like conscience, to his life. He just let Georgia, they just let Georgia come in and beat this kid up for 4 quarters of football. For 60 minutes, this young man took licks, and he didn't have to. Who does this help? You think that this is a growing experience? Just getting worked over by Georgia? Felipe Franks didn't even have a chance, man. I feel so bad for that guy. I still think he's going to be a legit quarterback. Might just need a new coach. Touch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio, noogaradio.com, 92.7 FM.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
Chattanooga police say that a juvenile was threatening someone with a firearm, and an eyewitness spotted what was going on. He pulled out his own heat and opened fire, hitting the out-of-control youth, who had to be taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The man who opened fire is not going to be charged. The shooting, the police say, was justified. Nobody in this case has been named. A possible motive has been uncovered in the case of Matthew Derrick Henry, who's accused of opening fire on traffic from an overpass over I-75. Mr. Henry told police that he has PTSD and had run out of his medication. After a multiple-hour manhunt in Chattanooga, he was arrested at his home. A home went up in smoke on Dolly Pond Road Saturday night at about 8:40. Nobody was hurt. The Tri-Community VFD got the fire put out. Damages are still being estimated. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7. Now.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity. 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News. NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at noogaradio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
Goss Insurance. Yes, we are local. And no, we don't have an 800 number. In fact, our mobile numbers are on our business cards. We live, work, play, and worship in Chattanooga, and we would love to help with your insurance. Business, auto, home, life insurance. Call now, save money. Call Goss Insurance for all your insurance needs. Goss Insurance, 875-2500. 875-2500.
Nooga Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree. Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4. News Talk Nooga Radio.
So we're talking about the SEC today and how it is, in fact, a conference very much on fire because, like, there's a lot of coaches in this conference that aren't very good. That's just the only way that I can say it. I think that the talent is here. The players are good. Like, I'm not a guy that comes down on players because it's like if you thought your team was good when you recruited them and you're the coach, that's on you. It's very hard for me to come down on players. I can come down on professional athletes because at that point, it really doesn't come down to coaching. Like players make plays professionally, but in college, I mean, it's a coaching thing. Coaches become stars in college more so than players. Nick Saban is a star. Urban Meyer is a star. James Franklin and Kirby Smart, if they have a good run of like 5 years or so of doing exactly what they're doing, they're going to become stars. Coaches become stars in college. Clay Helton became a star simply because he coached at the University of Southern California. He became a star because he coached at a university that is well known for being good at football. And they weren't even good at football when he started coaching there. Like, think about that. You can be a star by becoming a coach in college. Coaches are not necessarily stars at the pro level, right? Like Jim Caldwell's not a star. Bill Belichick's a star. But you see how many Super Bowls Bill Belichick has to win to be a star? Right? Like Andy Reid is a star. He's been coaching forever. That's what it takes to be a star in professional sports, is to be consistently good for a really long time. You can be a star really fast for not that much. Like Lane Kiffin is arguably a star. He may not be having a great time at Florida Atlantic. And Lane Kiffin may not be good if he is your head coach. He may be the greatest OC you ever had. He may not be great if he is your head coach. But he's a star. We all know about the Joey Freshwater story. He's got a legendary status. Coaches become stars in college. So yeah, I blame coaches when teams stink in college. I think that's fair, because if you want the talent, college is different from professional sports. And this is something that, as a guy who watched professional sports most of his life and then started watching college after, this is something that's hard to get used to in college, which is that if your team can convince the best talent to come to your school, then you can have the best talent. You just have to convince them. Right now, you might be able to convince them through legal and maybe illegal means, but all it takes is you convince the people that you want to be there to be there. Right? It's not about payment necessarily. It's not supposed to be anyway. It's not about compensation as such. You are just trying to convince people that they want to be where you are. And it means that you've got to convince them to jump all these hurdles that they need to jump, right? If you want to convince somebody that they need to be playing football at Notre Dame, then you also need to convince that person that they need to get their grade point average up, or else they're not going to be playing football at Notre Dame. The same thing for Stanford. You need to convince them that they're jumping that hurdle. Maybe you need to convince the guy to move away from his family, right? Like, oh, my family lives in Florida, and then you're Nick Saban trying to get this kid to play, and he wants to play in front of his family in Florida. You might have to convince him to jump that hurdle. There's a bunch of things that you need people to give up in order to play for you, in order to convince them to play for you, but it can be done. And if you are actually a coach worthy of superstar status, you do it. You do it, or you're Dan Mullen. And you don't really convince anybody of note to ever come to your school, and you just coach whoever you get. And you're really good at it. You're really good at it regardless, and then you wind up just sort of being really good, and you win 10 games a year, even though there's no good reason why you're winning 10 games a year. You're just a really good coach. Just a really good coach. I mean, that's really all it is. So I look at the SEC and I go, wow. But nowhere is this embodied more than Tennessee and Butch Jones, who is struggling. Tennessee's not winning football games. Now, here's the thing. If you told this fan base at the beginning of the year, you guys might win maybe 5, 6, 7 games, somewhere in that ballpark, I think everyone would have believed you. I don't think most fans would have been okay with or believed you on the concept of somewhere in the middle of the season, you all are going to win. You guys are going to lose a bunch of games in a row. You're just going to lose 4 games in a row. Can you deal with this at all? You're going to lose 4 games in a row. You're going to lose 5 out of 6 games for a stretch in the season. And the answer to that question, of course, is I have no clue. This is a tough point for me. But I think we know Jones, that Tennessee has to get Butch Jones up out of there. Like, it's not a good look. It's not a good look when the head coach of a football team does not seem to be able to have answers and answers of any kind for any opponent that they happen to be facing. Doesn't have answers. Right? You don't have answers defensively. You don't have answers offensively. right? Your quarterback doesn't throw for any touchdowns. You got bailed out running the football because I didn't know how that was going to work. But you don't have any answers defensively because you can't stop anybody running the football. And we knew you couldn't stop anybody running the football because you started the season showing us that you couldn't stop anybody running the football. The opposing quarterback throws 15 passes for 46 yards. So tell me how they managed to rack up 371 yards of total offense. Explain that to me, please. And this was actually a really good game, right? Like, it's the kind of game that if you're Tennessee, you would normally be able to take some hope from. It's the kind of game that under normal circumstances, right, which, like, barring all of those losses, you would normally be able to feel a little bit good about. It's 29, it's 20-26 against an offense in Kentucky that can score, right? Against the football team that has been winning football games. You want to feel not so bad about losing to Kentucky. Except losing to Kentucky is problematic because this is one of the winnable games of the last, like, 5 games that you've played on your actual schedule. And you have not been able to win any of the games, right? Like, you haven't been able to upset anybody. You haven't been able to surprise anybody. You've proven that you're barely able to score, right? That long drought of quarters without an offensive touchdown. How long did that get for? Was that like 17 quarters without an offensive touchdown? And normally you want to take solace in the fact that this football team was able to finally put points on the board. Except you can't. And your schedule does not lend itself to feeling particularly good, right? And here's why it doesn't lend itself to feeling particularly good. Your next game is against Southern Miss, right? That ought to be a win. We'll see, but that ought to be a win. After which you play Missouri. Now, Tennessee's better than Missouri. But as every boxing fan on this earth will tell you, styles make fights. And Missouri matches up against Tennessee in such a way, Vols might have some trouble scoring. Not scoring, sorry. Stopping Missouri from scoring. Because Missouri likes to throw the ball a lot. And if you don't believe in this Tennessee Volunteer secondary, who played against Steven Johnson, quarterback for Kentucky, and held him to 46 yards, which looks good on the face of it, but actually really isn't that great because A, Steven Johnson was injured, and B, Steven Johnson is an inconsistent quarterback already. So if you're telling me that you believe in that secondary enough to stop Missouri, more power to you. If you believe that this team can beat LSU and Vandy in the upcoming weeks, again, more power to you. The only win that I am seeing left on this schedule that is guaranteed, I mean, I use guaranteed loosely because nothing's guaranteed at this point, is Southern Miss. You enjoy that one because it doesn't get better from there. It doesn't. And like the question of what do you do with Butch Jones is looming. And people want to know, like, why doesn't Tennessee just pull the plug on Butch Jones? For what? Why? What happened? Why? What do you get out of it? What do you get out of firing Butch Jones right now? Like I was just saying about Jim McElwain. I think you wait till the end of the season. What do you gain out of this? Right? What do you gain out of firing him mid-season? Like, it doesn't do anything for you. Teams don't get better when you fire the head coach in the middle of the season, unless you were just sending a strong message. But Tennessee already took a hit in recruiting this past year. So unless you're trying to send a message to recruits like, yeah, now he's gone. I always think that mid-season firings make your team look particularly dumpster fiery. Which maybe that's what you do if you're aware of it and you want to get a head start on trying to find a new coach and all that stuff. But you can try and find a new coach while the guy is while Butch is still coaching. You can still try and replace him. You can still consider other options. Like, you can't just pull the plug on somebody in the middle of the season and expect things to get better. Like, it's not going to get better if you replace him with another coach. So what are you trying to do? Like, we know he's gone, right? Like, we understand logistically. He's out of here. He really is. And that's pretty much just that. Dude's gone. So now the question becomes, like, now what? Because, like, you've got a lot of problems. And you need it. Like, for one, you have no identity. You need an identity. You need a coach that will give you an identity. And who's that going to be? Where are you going to find that? Right? Because, I mean, people are still praying for this miracle of John Gruden. And you just need to understand. I don't care what John Gruden says. John Gruden is not coming to coach your football team, Vols fans. He's not. He ain't coming. You understand? He watches football for a living, and he makes a lot of money watching football for a living and talking about football for a living and being awkward on the set of ESPN. That is what they pay that man to do, and they pay him a lot of money to do it. And every day that John Gruden wakes up, John Gruden doesn't have to worry about being fired. Every day that John Gruden wakes up, John Gruden doesn't have to worry about recruiting. Every day that John Gruden wakes up, John Gruden doesn't have to worry about game planning. He just gets to watch football. Why would he leave that? To make less money, because there's no way you're going to pay him more money than what ESPN pays him. To make less money for more stress, where he's got to prove something. Right? Like John Gruden is a Super Bowl winning head coach. There is nothing else that man needs to prove. And while, like, it would be exciting, it would be absolutely exciting if the Vols got John Gruden as a head coach. Because I do believe that John Gruden is one of those dudes. He walks up on your campus and you are immediately a better football team because he is there. And recruits immediately want to play for you because he is there. He's that kind of guy. He's got the charisma. He's got the football knowledge. Like, John Gruden would give your team an identity overnight. You don't think identity is important? Identity is very important, right? Because it's how brands communicate with you, and it's how brands communicate internally even. Right? The idea that you know what the Amazon logo and the Nike logo and the Coke logo is says a lot about those companies, because those companies have an identity. And having an identity is like the first step to being actually successful. That's the thing that's really cool about watching Georgia play this year, is that Georgia found an identity. Georgia punches you in the face defensively, and then they punch you in the face offensively, running the football. That is what they do. They smash you, okay? They steamroll you, and they look like a certain other SEC team. And sure, maybe it's a little derivative that their identity is exactly somebody else's identity, but it's an identity, which is better than what Tennessee has, which is nothing. Because what is Tennessee supposed to actually be good at? Explain that to me. If you're a Vols fan, phone number is 800-8949. What is Tennessee supposed to actually be good at? Because I don't know. I don't know. What are they supposed to be good at? Right? Like if you talk about Alabama, what is Alabama supposed to be good at? Well, Alabama's always supposed to be good at defense. Right? And right now, offensively, they're really good at the quarterback position with Jalen Hurts. You know, all the good teams in college football, you name them, you know what they're supposed to be good at. Like, you know what Georgia's good at. If you're a college football fan and you watch a lot more college football than just the SEC, you know what Notre Dame is good at. You know what TCU is good at. When Oklahoma was good, you knew what they were good at. You know what Clemson was good at. Washington, USC. You know what those teams are good at. They have an identity. Right? I mean, say what you want about Texas A&M. The thing that makes the Kevin Sumlin thing so hard and makes firing him such a weird thing to have to do is Kevin Sumlin has given Texas A&M an offense. Now, they're inconsistent. They don't win a lot of football games that they should win over his time there, but they have an identity. Right? They play pretty good defense, and then offensively, their quarterback has got to be a dynamic running playmaker. Like, that's the Texas A&M dynamic. You can argue that Kevin Sumlin has underachieved with the quarterback talent that he has had. Right? You could make a very strong argument for that. But he's gotten the quarterback talent. He knows exactly what he wants his offense to look like. He gets guys that do that. Right? Like we even know what Auburn and LSU are. And Auburn and LSU aren't the greatest football teams in college football, but they're pretty good. And we even know what they do. What does Tennessee do? Like there's a handful of SEC teams. Like I'm God's the honest truth. I'm confused as what it is that you do. Why do you exist? I'm confused about South Carolina. Like, what does South Carolina actually do well? Is it offense? Sometimes. Is it defense? Maybe. That's not an identity. What do you do? Like, say what you want about Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has an identity. They have a point to build from. Say whatever you want about Missouri. Missouri's bad. Like, Missouri sometimes is historically bad. But you know what? We all know the Tigers play offense. They're the team most likely, when you read a stat line over the weekend, to have either given up 50 points and scored 10 or scored 50 points and given up 10. That's them. That's them. They have an identity. Problem with Missouri, they don't defend. You can fix it. You don't even know where to start with Tennessee. It's so confusing. Is the problem the offense? Kind of. You've got two quarterbacks. One's young, one is injured. You've got an offensive line that's porous, but you've got wide receivers and running backs that are talented. Is it the defense? Maybe. The secondary makes big plays sometimes, but they're not really secure, so you can really throw on them sometimes. Also, they're horrible at stopping the run. Like, what kind of team is that? Or are they good at special teams? Not really. They don't give up a ton of special teams plays, but they don't make any either. What kind of team is that? Like they're a hodgepodge of good here and we stink here. That's not any good. Like, look at every business in America. Like, not to belabor the business analogy, but seriously, having a thing that you do well is really important. Right? Like, McDonald's doesn't serve you great food, but it serves you the food fast. Otherwise, you wouldn't eat at McDonald's. It's cheap and it's fast. That's the thing that they do well. I mean, you look at animals. Look at the animal kingdom. Some animals are strong. Right? Some animals are fast. Some animals can fly. Animals exist because they have a thing that they do well. The animals that can't really do anything well die. That's what happens. So like, explain to me how it's okay that I watched Tennessee on Saturday and I'm not sure what it is that they do. I'm not sure from snap to snap whether or not they can complete first downs. I'm not sure if throwing is a better idea than running. I'm not sure very often when I watch the Vols exactly what to think. Like, I'm not. And how do you manage to have that be the state of your football team after 5 years of coaching the football team? Right? Like, if that's not the most compelling argument for we kind of got to lose Butch Jones, it's after 5 years, the team still doesn't have an identity. It still doesn't have a thing that it does well. And by the way, Tennessee had an identity briefly under Butch Jones. And I would argue all the credit for that goes to Josh Dobbs. That were it not for the existence of Joshua Dobbs, Tennessee wouldn't have had an identity last year. Except that dude just became a playmaker whenever they needed him to. Clutch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com, 92.7 FM.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
Chattanooga police say that a juvenile was threatening someone with a firearm, and an eyewitness spotted what was going on. He pulled out his own heat and opened fire, hitting the out-of-control youth, who had to be taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The man who opened fire is not going to be charged. The shooting, the police say, was justified. Nobody in this case has been named. A possible motive has been uncovered in the case of Matthew Derrick Henry, who's accused of opening fire on traffic from an overpass over I-75. Mr. Henry told police that he has PTSD and had run out of his medication. After a multiple-hour manhunt in Chattanooga, he was arrested at his home. A home went up in smoke on Dolly Pond Road Saturday night at about 8:40. Nobody was hurt. The Tri-Community VFD got the fire put out. Damages are still being estimated. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7. Now.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
Power Hour News at noon and 9 being brought to you by Greg's Sandwich Works, featuring the best cuts of meats for your sandwich. Get $1 off your Tuesday taco salad. Just mention Nooga Radio. Greg's Sandwich Works, 6337 East Brainerd Road, Chattanooga.
As an independent agent, Goss represents more than 50 of the leading companies. Goss does the shopping and you save. Goss Insurance for your auto, business, home, and life insurance. 875-2500 Goss Insurance.
Hey, dude, check this out. Have you ever seen one so big?
Whoa, look at the size of that.
Look at this little itty-bitty one.
Wow, that's really small.
They have them big, small, and everything in between. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives at the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. We're talking about over 40 brands of knives, including Benchmade, WR Case & Sons, Booker, and all the Frost Cutlery brands. Now, Sam, you've been to the cutlery shop. Is it amazing?
Spectacular. The knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. They have knives, swords, kitchen knives, ammo, and reloading supplies, plus survival gear.
It's the knife shop at Frost Cutlery. They're open 7 days a week. Hey, girls, you're going to love this. We're going to the knife shop. Hey, let's not tell them they have ammo and loading supplies. The Knife Shop at Frost Cutlery opens 7 days a week. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives. You're going to love the Knife Shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. The Knife Shop.
And tell them David Tulis sent you.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
Cash, 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 and more cash. Watch it gush out of your TV. Rick Davis is on national TV. Wow. Golden diamonds, coins, and more riches. Rick's selling, Rick's buying, and he's on national TV. Watch him Wednesday, 11 p.m., right after the Judy O'Neill Talk Show. North Georgia Cable TV 265. You won't want to miss it. It's a mountain of cash, cash, cash. And it's catching the Hollywood spotlight. Hey, if one day hasn't got your head spinning, how about a second? Rick Davis is on Fridays, Channel 12, 10:30 a.m., right before The Price is Right. You gotta see it to believe it. Wednesday, 11 p.m., North Georgia Cable Channel 265. Friday, 10:30 a.m. on TV 12. 2 big shows every week. Rick Davis Golden Diamonds. You know where it is. Brainerd Road, Chattanooga. Cash, 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 and more cash.
If I were a rich man.
Hey, Mom.
Yes, Summer.
I know what I'd like to do for Christmas this year. Take shoeboxes full of goodies to the homeless military veterans.
What would go into these shoeboxes?
Toothbrushes, toothpaste, dental floss, deodorant, chapsticks, shampoo, soap, hand warmers, hand sanitizer, socks, gloves, toboggans, small Bibles, blankets, snacks, and cough drops.
Where can people donate these items?
Alpine Crest Elementary School, Sonic on Hickson Pike next to Frontrunner, Chick-fil-A in Northgate Mall in Hickson, Greg's Sandwich Works, 6337 East Brainerd Road, and Nooga Radio on Hickson Pike.
When will we distribute the shoeboxes?
On November 10th from 11 to 12:30 and December 15th from 10:30 to 12:30 at the Community Kitchen on East 11th Street, downtown Chattanooga. Please help us in donating these items for our shoebox campaign. No veteran should ever go homeless.
Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News. NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
WVLZ HD4 Ottawa, W224AZ Chattanooga,
92.7, Digital FM 95.3 HD4 Chattanooga.
3 Trump campaign officials, the first to be prosecuted in the Russia investigation.
It's money laundering, it's conspiracy, it's false statements, and tax evasion.
A federal judge puts a halt to the president's ban on transgender people in the military.
Those who are transgender can serve openly.
This is the CBS World News Roundup Late Edition. I'm Pam Coulter. Former campaign manager Paul Manafort and longtime associate Rick Gates are out on millions of dollars bond and on house arrest after pleading not guilty to charges that include conspiracy and tax evasion. CBS's Andrew Cohen says it's not the usual political corruption case.
This is more of a classic financial fraud money laundering case, which means it is far more likely that the feds ultimately will have any conviction they get here upheld on appeal. And that is a calculus likely to generate serious plea negotiations with both defendants.
A former campaign advisor also pleaded guilty earlier this month to lying to the FBI.
This is Bill Rakoff. Congressman Adam Schiff says George Papadopoulos' plea may be the bigger story from the special prosecutor.
You have a very suspicious meeting in Italy by someone called the Professor, and you have the Trump campaign official, Papadopoulos, lying to the FBI about it.
Schiff says that's very significant because
yet another interaction between the Kremlin through intermediaries with the Trump campaign in complete parallel with the meeting that was in Trump Tower.
Bill Rakoff, CBS News, Washington.
Defense attorney Kevin Downing says Manafort is charged with rarely prosecuted financial laws.
The claim that maintaining offshore accounts
to bring all your funds into the United States as a scheme to conceal from the United States government is ridiculous.
White House spokeswoman Sarah Sanders.
We've been saying from day one there's been no evidence of Trump-Russia collusion, and nothing in the indictment today changes that at all.
A federal judge has blocked President Trump's ban on transgender people serving in the military. CBS's Jeff McCausland says the armed forces need the best and brightest.
Our ability to recruit to the best we can and keep them in uniform is certainly to our benefit, and that may mean in the future now, transgender as well as homosexual people as well as women serving throughout the service.
Army Sergeant Bo Bergdahl took the stand at his sentencing trial on desertion charges to apologize to service members who were injured while looking for him. CBS's Jim Krasula.
Army Sergeant Bo Bergdahl said he never intended for anyone to get hurt when he fled his post in Afghanistan. He apologized to comrades who were wounded in the search for him, saying, quote, "My words alone can't take away their pain."
The death of a Green Beret in Mali last summer has been ruled a homicide, and naval officials are investigating whether 2 members of SEAL Team 6 were involved. The Dow is off 85 today. Now this.
I'm Jay Farner from Quicken Loans. The rate today on a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is 3.875%, APR 4.05%. But choosing the right mortgage lender means choosing much more than just a rate. Let me ask you, does calling the company with the best client service in America, with 11 J.D. Power Awards to prove it, matter? Does calling the company that invented Rocket Mortgage, the industry's most innovative, client-focused technology, matter? Does calling the company with 17,000-plus team members who are helping to rebuild the great cities of Detroit and Cleveland matter? Of course it matters. No wonder our clients have made Quicken Loans America's #1 online lender. Call Quicken Loans today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com for the best mortgage experience on earth. Quicken.
Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
House Speaker Paul Ryan promoted the GOP tax plan in a meeting with business people in Wisconsin as the proposal lost the support of the National Association of Home Builders.
Our tax system is so complicated. Our tax system really ties our hands behind our backs. We need to clean up our tax code, simplify our tax code, and frankly, just lower our tax rates so that our businesses are more competitive with the rest of the world.
He said special interests are trying to derail the plan by creating confusion and chaos. Puerto Rico's canceling that controversial $300 million contract with Tiny Whitefish Energy to restore power to the island. CBS's David Begnaud.
It seemed as though the questions about the contract and what was going on was too much for the governor, Ricardo Rosselló. In fact, he seemed to indicate yesterday that all the negative attention was just too much. At one point, he said the contract just didn't seem to be in the best interest of the Puerto Rican people.
Power restoration could now take an additional 12 weeks. You're listening to the CBS World News.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Chattanooga police say that a juvenile was threatening someone with a firearm, and an eyewitness spotted what was going on. He pulled out his own heat and opened fire, hitting the out-of-control youth, who had to be taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The man who opened fire is not going to be charged. The shooting, the police say, was justified. Nobody in this case has been named. A possible motive has been uncovered in the case of Matthew Derrick Henry, who's accused of opening fire on traffic from an overpass over I-75. Mr. Henry told police that he has PTSD and had run out of his medication. After a multiple-hour manhunt in Chattanooga, he was arrested at his home. A home went up in smoke on Dolly Pond Road Saturday night at about 8:40. Nobody was hurt. The Tri-Community VFD got the fire put out. Damages are still being estimated. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7. Now.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News. NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
You're listening to 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com, Clutch with Keon Rose. Hour number 2 of the show. The SEC is on fire. That's what we're talking about, because we're looking at it and we're going, well, why is it that there are bad coaches everywhere and that you got to fire them all? I actually don't know how it is that we got to this point, but I will say that there is some level of cannibalization that has happened within the SEC, because there's a number of coaches here that are on the hot seat or about to be fired that I would say are very good coaches and that have been successful other places that they have been. When we have the coaching conversation, and we don't have the coaching conversation except somebody's about to be fired. But when we have the coaching conversation, we don't really look at that person's track record prior to coming to this school. And if you did that, you'd go, okay, these guys aren't horrible coaches. Butch Jones, if you looked at his track record prior to coming to Tennessee, he's not a bad coach. And even his time at Tennessee has not been horrible. He just hasn't lived up to any of the expectations, and he hasn't won the games that mattered. He hasn't won the games that mattered, right? And you could make a similar argument for Jim McElwain. But the reason why you would even hire a guy like Jim McElwain is you look at the background and you look at the track record and go, yeah, this guy can be a really good football coach. And that when Jim McElwain first got hired at Florida, I talked to a number of college football insiders who said, yeah, there are high hopes for Jim McElwain in Florida. And he just never got it done. He just never was able to find that quarterback, find that piece that really put him over the top, which I just think that's the part that's saddening there. Now, when you look at Butch Jones' track record, Brett Bielema's track record, like there's nothing in any of these guys' track records that indicate that they're bad coaches. They're actually very good coaches when you look at their history. I would make a similar argument, by the way, for Kevin Sumlin. You look at the history of the guys, there's a good track record there, right? Why do we want all of these guys run? I think that there is a standard problem, right? Which is partially Nick Saban's fault, which is nothing that he can really do about it because he's just going out there being Nick Saban. But the standard is this. You have Nick Saban in your conference, and he's so successful for so long, and he makes it look so easy. You want everybody in your conference to be Nick Saban, and that's not possible. It's just not possible. If someone is dominating the conference, someone else has to be dominated. And you've got all of these SEC schools taking risks on guys trying to find someone that's going to be Saban, and it's not necessarily working out. Really, that guy's one of a kind. And we do this everywhere, by the way. This is not just a college football thing. We had Michael Jordan. And the moment Mike Jordan left the NBA, what did we start doing? We started looking for the next Michael Jordan. And what we found was LeBron James. And we compared LeBron James mercilessly to Michael Jordan his entire career. LeBron James is not Michael Jordan. They don't play the same position. They don't play the same way. They don't have the same basketball sensibilities. Nothing about those two guys is the same except that they're both great basketball players. They're really smart. And they're both going to have great lives in business after basketball. Jordan already is. LeBron James will. That's about it. We have LeBron James, and we are looking for the next LeBron. I remember seeing an article about this kid that was supposed to be the next LeBron James. I read it like 5 years ago in Sports Illustrated or something like that. He's supposed to be the next LeBron James. But turns out he's Andrew Wiggins. Plays for the Timberwolves now, right? Like now he's in the league. And look, I like Wiggins. Wiggins is good, man. And in terms of like his build and athletic ability, Wiggins could actually be quite a bit like LeBron. But he's not LeBron. Like, why do you get a guy that's great? He dominate something for years, and then immediately you want everybody to be that guy. It doesn't work that way. Nothing in life works that way. If someone is the dominator, somebody else got to be the dominated. And that's usually most people. That is most folks that you know. Right? Like, what is it about most businesses? Most businesses go out of business in 2 years. Why? Yeah, when you open up a store, you want Walmart money eventually, right? You'd like to start a business where potentially you're good, your kids are good, your kids' are good, your kids' are good. But that's not how this works. And if you open up a shopping store, you are more likely to fail and lose your money than you are to be Walmart. Right? Like the gap between, and you see this with successful people all the time. Like, how come it is that you see someone and maybe they're in a commercial here and a commercial there, and they're in a tiny movie here, and then all of a sudden they're in a blockbuster movie, and then they're in 10 other blockbuster movies? Why do you think that that is? Because being successful, the gap from 0 to 1, that's the biggest step. That's the biggest step. The gap from 1 to 2 is not as big as 0 to 1. The gap from 1 to 100 is not as big as from 0 to 1. It's hard to be successful. Everybody can't be Walmart. Everybody can't be Amazon, right? Most people aren't. If you're lucky, you're Overstock.com. People have heard of you. No one ever goes there. But at least you get to exist in a space. That's where most college football coaches wind up. Everybody can't be Saban, but you put unbelievable amounts of pressure on these guys because you want everybody to be Saban, and maybe not in terms of his mentality or his attitude or his coaching style, but you want his levels of success. And that's fair, because who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want to essentially be considered one of the top 4 schools in the nation year in and year out? You're basically playing to be undefeated year in and year out. Everybody's terrified of you. You win some games just based on the fact that people are terrified of you. You're always in the national title game. When you are in the national title game, you overwhelmingly win. Who wouldn't want that? The problem is that you end up running through so many coaches in order to find that guy, or taking risks on coaches that are just okay in order to find that guy, because you are trying so hard to replicate that same level of success. And I'm telling you, it's not possible. Okay. Like, you're never going to have, there isn't a league in college football that has reached Nick Saban's success. I mean, none of the other coaches have, right? And you can look at the success of a Jimbo Fisher and a Dabo Swinney and an Urban Meyer, and they're still not close. They are still not even close. Do you understand? You can talk about it all you want to, about how those places are, and you are still not close. You're just not. It's a tall order to ask everybody to be that guy. Now, unfortunately, when you are in the same conference with that guy, I think that there is more pressure to find someone who can be anywhere near that successful, which, by the way, is why I think the whole Dan Mullen and Mississippi State thing works so well. Because Dan Mullen feels like, I mean, just looking at Mississippi State, it doesn't look like Mississippi State has any aspirations of being Alabama. Like, Mississippi State has a nice little run here of just being good. Not great. Not great. Good. And they are totally cool with being good. And Dan Mullen, God bless him, also feels really cool with just being good. Like, the dude's just good. They win 10 games a year. They never fall off. They beat the people they can beat. They lose to those who they can't. And they wind up winning about 10 games a year every year. They win some really big games. They have some really fun ones. They've got some thrillers. They've got some shockers. But ultimately, they're good. Not great. They've realized what the rest of the SEC has not. And that's why everybody is out here struggling. Right? Like there's an idea in Eastern philosophy that the reason why your life is miserable, right? It's a Buddhist idea. But the reason why your life is miserable and the reason why you feel like your life stinks is because it actually doesn't. You just struggle. You don't accept what you have. You don't accept where you are, and you fight it. And when you fight it, you make it feel worse. You make yourself more stressful and stressed out, and you make everyone around you more stressed out because you don't accept your life. You don't accept responsibility for the problems in it. You don't try to fix them based on what you can do. Don't just dream up big solutions to problems. Like, do the stuff that you can actually do and would do in front of your face. Like, do that. But you don't. Most people don't. Most people are miserable. Like, we're the most heavily diagnosed country in the world when it comes to the amount of people in this country that take drugs. In other cultures, there's not even a word for depression. You don't accept your life. You can't accept it. So you're miserable. And a lot of these schools in college football, but specifically in the SEC, because we are directly under the shadow of Saban, a lot of these schools in college football cannot accept that they can't have what Alabama's got. Okay? Guy like Nick Saban doesn't come around, but so often. Okay? And if you are that school, you can't have, if you are every other school, rather, you can't have what the school that has him has got. You just can't. You absolutely can't. And you got to accept that. You've got to accept that. Like, if you do accept that, then you actually realize that your season is Florida. Not that bad. It's not great. It's not at all where you want it to be, but it's not that bad. The reason why it feels bad if you're Florida is because you are chasing Nick Saban. Right? The reason why it feels so bad if you are Tennessee is because you are chasing Nick Saban. Like, Brett Bielema was winning like 8-9 games a year, and Arkansas fans were unsatisfied with that idea. Unsatisfied. It's like, well, what goal did you have for yourself? I understand everybody wants to be a title team, but most people just wind up being pretty good. Like, this will apply to you in life. I don't know if you're a kid right now, like, understand that most people in life are just like pretty good at their jobs. Like, if you want to really be successful in life, work your butt off. You know why? Because if you work your butt off, you will automatically be better than like 90% of people at jobs. Most people are just okay. Right? Doesn't matter. It doesn't, like, it really, this is across every job. Most people are just okay. If you work really hard, chances are you will be better than most people automatically. Because most people don't try that hard. They do just enough to get by, which doesn't really work in college football. Everybody's trying really hard, but it means that you make mistakes, though. When you are trying to do everything in order to catch Nick Saban, it means you're going to make mistakes. I mean, it's just what it is. Instead of making a good sound coaching hire, a good, intelligent decision. I mean, I look at Georgia and I go, they had Mark Richt. And I know that going on from Mark Richt is not an easy job. Like, it's not an easy decision to make. But the decision that you made was, well, we want our identity to be something else. So we did that. And it's worked out. And I don't think that every school in the SEC is doing that. And so I think it's not working out. Like, you've got to make a very strong, concerted decision as to who you are and what you are going to be and what you are going to put up with. Right? And what's realistic for you to do. It's not realistic for you to try and be Alabama if you're South Carolina. It's not realistic for you to try and be Alabama if you're Arkansas. It's just not. Right? Like, if you look at what Brett Bielema has done at Arkansas under the lens of he's not Nick Saban. He hasn't been all that bad at Arkansas. It's not a good year this year. Does he underachieve? Yes, he underachieves, but underachieves what? Because if you put the bar high enough, everybody underachieves. That's what I'm saying. I'm looking at all of these schools struggle to try and find another great coach, and we end up playing musical chairs with the coaches. Tell me why Will Muschamp is back in this conference again, coaching at South Carolina. Why is that a thing? This is what happens in the SEC. We just rearrange the coaches. You're trying hard to get another good coach, but you're not trying that hard. You're not thinking about what direction you want to go in and how to get there. You might say that you are, but if you really were, the results would be, okay, our coach was not good, but that's because he failed to take us in the direction we wanted to go. Not he failed to be the class of the SEC year after year. Because everybody can't. If some team is bad last year and they improve, that means somebody else in the conference got worse. That's just math. Right? The wins are coming from somewhere. Everybody can't be good. It's not possible. And I look at the SEC and I go, you don't have a bad conference. But you would think so because everybody's trying to fire a coach. Right? Like you fire a guy after he comes off of back-to-back SEC East titles with no realistic offense. So what does that tell you? Like, I'm not trying to say that Florida made a mistake moving on from Jim McElwain. I understand why. He's an offensive guy. And after, what was this? 4 or 5 years of McElwain. No offense. Even the years that they won the title, no offense. There was no offense that was consistent, that you were looking at Florida and going, boy, I'm worried about them. And this is a school with a long, storied history of quarterback play. Like some of the greatest college football quarterbacks ever have played for the University of Florida. So this idea that you just can't find quarterbacks and just can't get them and your offense is just stalling out all the time, not acceptable from their point of view. But I'm also saying, like, what on earth did you want Jim McElwain to be? Right? Was it really the fact that Georgia routed you that caused you to drop McElwain? Because we knew Georgia was going to rout you. We knew Georgia was going to walk right through you like you weren't even there. We knew that already. Was that really the thing that pushed it over the limit? And this is why I'm opposed to firing guys in the middle of the season. To me, it speaks very strongly of we have no idea what we're doing. Right? LSU fires Les Miles mid-season last year and replaces him with Ed Orgeron. Was that the plan? Right? Then you ultimately wind up hiring Ed Orgeron. That speaks to me of we had no idea what we were doing and we took the first thing available. You understand that most people don't wind up marrying the first woman that they date. Some people do, right? Because sometimes you find that person, you know. But most people wind up not doing that. Why? Because that's an important decision. Right? Like you need to be absolutely positive. Most people wind up not marrying the first person that they date because you need to be able to know what that person is. You're not buying a sweater. You're marrying a whole person. Right? So you either date the person for a long time or date multiple people in order to get an understanding of the type of person that it takes to live with you and the kind of person you can live with. Because most of us are not aware of our own nonsense. Like, oh, yeah, no, other people can't live with my nonsense. And it's more than likely not going to be the very first person you decide to date. Like, it just usually isn't. LSU didn't have a plan. It worked out, sort of, but like they didn't have a plan. Clutch with Keon Rose on 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Chattanooga police say that a juvenile was threatening someone with a firearm, and an eyewitness spotted what was going on. He pulled out his own heat and opened fire, hitting the out-of-control youth, who had to be taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The man who opened fire is not going to be charged. The shooting, the police say, was justified. Nobody in this case has been named. A possible motive has been uncovered in the case of Matthew Derrick Henry, who's accused of opening fire on traffic from an overpass over I-75. Mr. Henry told police that he has PTSD and had run out of his medication. After a multiple-hour manhunt in Chattanooga, he was arrested at his home. A home went up in smoke on Dolly Pond Road Saturday night at about 8:40. Nobody was hurt. The Tri-Community VFD got the fire put out. Damages are still being estimated. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7. Now.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News. NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
Goss Insurance. Yes, we are local. And no, we don't have an 800 number. In fact, our mobile numbers are on our business cards. We live, work, play, and worship in Chattanooga, and we would love to help with your insurance. Business, auto, home, life insurance. Call now, save money. Call Goss Insurance for all your insurance needs. Goss Insurance, 875-2500. 875-2500.
Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree. Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4. News Talk Nooga Radio.
You're listening to 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. Clutch with Keon Rose is the show that you're listening to. I'm Keon Rose. And I'm looking at the score of last night's World Series game, which I did not watch because I opted to watch football instead, and I instantly regretted it. I know. I flipped back and forth, but the game ended in the 10th inning and ended with a wonderful football score of 13-12. And what I want to know, and because it's the only thing that I took away from this game, in large part probably because I did not watch the game. We are at Game 5 of the World Series. Already at the all-time record for home runs. And we had some conversations earlier this year about Major League Baseball juicing the baseball. And I understand the commissioner, Rob Manfred, came out and said the balls are not juiced, but he's the commissioner, so he's supposed to say that. I'm not trying to get all conspiracy theoristy on you here. But what I am saying is this. Something seems off about that, man. Like the balls are just flying out of the park in a way that, like, I'm entertained, but also I'm a little worried. Right? I mean, that's generally how I feel about this. Like, I'm entertained. I'm entertained. Yes, I am. But man, what on earth? We're 5 games into this. We've got at least one more game to play. Astros lead the series 3-2. Got at least one more game to play. And it's thrilling. It's absolutely thrilling. But how does this work when we have a 13-12 game and like every game in the World Series, it feels like every game has been this. Right? Feels like every game in the World Series has been some version of this high-scoring game. And I understand that like 13-12 is excessive, but I mean, game 2, 7-6. Game 3, 5-3. Game 4, 6-2. I mean, it's an alarming output of runs. No? Am I wrong about this? And when I watch the balls just fly out of the park, it feels like they're jumping out of the park too easy. Now, again, Major League Baseball has said that balls aren't juiced. I'm just saying, I disagree. When I look at the NFL, I'm going to jump over to the NFL here for a little bit because NFL games did also happen, but man, the SEC was just way more interesting. College football is just way more interesting this weekend than the NFL, except in one regard. And that regard was the Texans versus the Seahawks, in which, wow, what a game. And also, that's what the future of the quarterback position looks like. It looks like that. Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson, punches, right? Both offenses going blow for blow up until the end of the game. And Deshaun Watson putting on some kind of show. I mean, that young guy can play. And again, I love toot my own horn on this. I was going to say I hate to toot my own horn, but that's actually not true. I love to toot my own horn. But especially on this, because it should have been obvious that Deshaun Watson was this good. I know that not every guy translates from college to the pros, and the things that you do in college, you can't do in the pros, right? Like, you saw Johnny Manziel and you thought that can't translate. I'm not going to lie, though. I saw Johnny Manziel and I thought it could. I thought Johnny Manziel could have been at least a decent NFL player. Johnny washed out for reasons other than football. He never got a chance to ever be good because he didn't give himself a chance because he's more interested in partying than football. That's his problem. But when I look at certain skills and certain abilities, when a guy can be aware, can be mobile and yet aware, then yeah, I believe in that person's ability to play football. Deshaun Watson is no ordinary NFL quarterback, right? And he's going up against Russell Wilson, arguably a guy who made it very possible for him to even be considered to be a first rounder, because if you are a person that saw Russell Wilson and what he was able to do for Seattle and thought to yourself, boy, we should never have passed on Russell Wilson, shame on you for then passing on Deshaun Watson, who is Russell Wilson, but more successful coming out of college, right? Like, he does everything Wilson can do. I think he does it better. Russell Wilson was more of a game manager when he came into the league. Russell Wilson is more of a playmaker now than what he was when he came into the league. Deshaun Watson's already there, right? Like, how is this not obvious? And by the way, tooting my own horn again, because I said the same thing about Dak Prescott. Like, this guy's got skills that are transferable. He is able to be mobile. Dak's not necessarily a runner. He's just mobile, and he's got his awareness about him, and he's a very accurate passer. Like, look, all of those things translate to the NFL marvelously. Marvelously. How is this possible that you were not able to see this coming? Now, Texans should have won that game, though, right? Bill O'Brien screwed up the whole game because Bill O'Brien is super conservative ultimately, right? Like, that's his game. And say what you want about the Texans and say what you want about the big plays that they are making, because they do have two very, very talented wide receivers in Kendall Fuller and in DeAndre Hopkins. But their game is mostly dink and dunk the ball up the field. That is the mind of a conservative head football coach who is not interested in taking giant risks and doesn't mind losing out on that reward. My issue comes down to the fact where picking up a first down for the Texans allows them to win the football game. And it's the same situation as Nick Wright pointed out on First Things First with him and Chris Carter. And it's the exact situation that they had against the Patriots earlier this year. A first down wins you the football game. Instead, they run the ball 3 times in a row and then give the ball back to Brady in the New England game, and then give the ball back to Russell Wilson. Now, for me, look, if I made a short list of guys who I did not want to ever give the ball back to, Tom Brady and Russell Wilson both make the list, right? Like, a short list of guys I don't want to give the ball back to. Tom Brady is number 1 on the list based on his Brady-ish reputation. And Russell Wilson, for me, is probably like 4th on that list. I don't want to ever give Drew Brees back the ball. I would have him ahead of Russell Wilson on that. I just don't want to. I've seen how this goes way too many times. You don't want to give back Brees the ball. Offense is potent. That offense is lethal. Right? Like when Matt Stafford has got the ball at the end of a game, I don't want to give him back the ball. I would have him ahead of Russell Wilson on that list. But yeah, like 2 other guys, I don't want him to have back the ball. I don't want Matt Stafford to have the ball, and I don't want Drew Brees to have the ball. You can pick whatever order you want to put those people in. I'm just saying, I don't want him to have the ball. Right? On a top 5 list of guys I never want to see with the ball coming down the stretch at the end of a game, Brady is 1. Stafford is another. Brees is another. Forgot Rodgers. Rodgers is the other one. And Russell Wilson is the other guy. Like, that's 5 people in the league. You don't give them back the ball. You try and ice that thing. Bill O'Brien, super conservative. We run the ball with Lamar Miller 3 times, give the ball back to Russell Wilson, who throws a touchdown to Jimmy Graham to win the game. Now, obviously, there was a breakdown on defense as well, because, I mean, oof. There's a huge mistake there at the end of the game by linebacker Zach Miller. But what do you do? It was a tough one. But Deshaun Watson is a bona fide star. That guy is a superstar. If ever I have seen one, he is able to step up to any moment on any stage, any day of the week. right? And even though he's not the most accurate passer, for me, he is doing all of the things now that we all thought Jameis was going to be doing in Tampa Bay, right? That Jameis is not necessarily the most accurate passer, which for me is a huge problem coming out of college. Deshaun was an accurate passer in college. He's not an accurate passer right now in the NFL. But Jameis was a big-time guy. You put Jameis Winston in college on any stage, Jameis Winston showed up, did whatever it took for his team to win. And in Jameis's last year, Florida State was awful, right? Jameis covered up for a lot of how bad that team was. They would just be in these positions. They'd be down 19-3 to a school they shouldn't even be losing to. And somehow you'd look at the ending score of the game and go, I don't know how they beat them, but they beat them 24-19. Why? Jameis. He's got that same gene in him. But Deshaun Watson's a much more reliable football player. I just like watching that guy play. I mean, he's great. He is great. He is fantastic. And that's what the future of the NFL looks like. Guys who are mobile, who can make plays with their arm. They use their feet to extend plays, right? Like we saw the turning of it. Aaron Rodgers, to me, is still the guy who is the best at that, at using his feet to extend plays, using his feet to make you pay. The future of the NFL is that. And I think the reason why we haven't been able to find consistently good quarterback play up until recently is I don't think most offensive coordinators want that. I think offensive coordinators like reliable. I think they like what they can trust. They like what they know. And what you can trust and what you know has always been the quarterback who can drop back, operate the pocket, shuffle around the pocket. But that's not what these guys are playing anymore. They're playing the Elite 7s and the Elite 11s in summer. They're doing 7-on-7 drills. They're going to college and throwing the ball more. They're being asked to make reads that involve what they're going to do with their feet. That's what the college game is giving you. So you have to take what it gives you, right? Like, say whatever you want about the marketplace. People complain about millennials all the damn time in a way that is A, condescending, and just B, annoying as all get out. Because seriously, everybody hated you once too. No matter what generation you are, everybody used to hate you too. I don't know how you got to this thing where, like, boy, millennials are the most narcissistic. Okay, if that's the way that you want to run it, but understand, once upon a time, people used to think that about you also. But the companies that have been successful, look at these companies. A lot of them are tech companies. A lot of these are media companies. They see what millennials can offer, and they just take what's given to them. Right? Like, there's a reason why Uber and Google and Amazon hire millennials. Right? There's a reason why ESPN tried to pick up a blog, because that's what the world is now. You don't fight it. You take what it gives you, or you don't have anybody. And that's the reason why we ended up for a long time in the NFL. We just had guys who couldn't play, especially the quarterback position, because there was a refusal among NFL coordinators to just take what the game gives you. If you're like, the NFL is in some ways just straight up crookery. They refuse to have their own minor league because that would cost money, right? Their own player development system. College gives that to them for free. So they just take talent from college. Well, if you're just going to take talent from college, you don't get to complain about what the college game gives you. What's there, and you work with it. They complained about it forever, and finally you're starting to see a bunch of guys work with it, right? Like, Bill O'Brien's system is complicated. Bill O'Brien himself has said a number of times where, like, not just anybody can come on in and run this system. But what Bill O'Brien has done, somehow in some way, the man has changed his tune. And the reason that Bill O'Brien has absolutely changed his tune is this. He has come to the realization that the guy that I drafted is Deshaun Watson. I'm just going to have to take what he gives me. In which case, I'm going to use a lot of the fact that he can run, a lot of that misdirection, a lot of that read option misdirection, because they ran a lot of that yesterday, and use that to my advantage. And of course the guy flourishes. Imagine if that happened for other quarterbacks that came out of college in previous years. Right? Imagine if that had happened for Cam when he first came out. We did some read option with Cam a little bit, but not a ton. Right? Imagine if that had happened for Robert in the third. Like, there are a number of quarterbacks, they did not want to work with what they were getting from the college system. Imagine if that had happened for Alex Smith many years ago. Tried to force him into the system that was traditional quarterback pro style offense. Just doesn't work that way. Clutch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio, noogaradio.com. 92.7 FM. I'm actually amazed by the Browns and the 49ers. We have two 0-8 teams in the NFL right now, and that's not good for the league. It's never good to have bottom of the barrel. Trust me. Like, now, I understand what I was just saying about everybody can't be great, but everybody doesn't have to be terrible. And in fact, you can have a good league where some teams are great, some teams are average, and what is bad is not 0-8. Because that's where we are in the NFL with the Niners and the Browns. I had higher hopes for the Browns than what they're performing up to. In large part because the Browns continue to pass on quarterbacks, and at some point they're going to have to choose one. They're going to have to choose a guy, and not Deshaun Kaiser. Because the word on the street, by the way, is Hugh Jackson wanted Deshaun Watson. Should have listened to Hugh. Sure, listen to Hugh. Tisk, tisk. So, I mean, that's something that's just bizarre. Mitch Trubisky looks pretty decent, by the way. They lost to the Saints. The Bears did 20-12. But he looks pretty decent. I contrast all of my Deshaun Watson stuff with Jameis Winston, by the way, because Jameis Winston has too much talent, man. He has too much talent to be as not good as he has been. Panthers yesterday beat the Buccaneers 17-3. Buccaneers don't score a touchdown. They have trouble moving the ball up and down the field. Jameis Winston throws 2 interceptions. And it's problematic. It's problematic because that guy's supposed to be the franchise. And here's the thing with Jameis. Jameis looks the part of a quarterback. Jameis is going to get more chances than most guys. Because when we watched Jameis in college, Jameis looked like what we want a quarterback to look like. He's going to get more chances than everybody else. Like, Jameis is a guy. How good is Jameis Winston actually? And maybe it's just a change of scenery that he needs. But I don't see how they hired Dirk Cutter to be the offensive guy to get the best out of Jameis. Now, Dirk Cutter doesn't seem to really like Jameis. There's that. But that's what they hired Dirk Cutter to do. Not doing it. Not doing it. And I'm starting to question, like, is this a Buccaneers thing or is this Jameis? But, I mean, you're on your second coach right now. They went out and got him all the weapons in the world. Granted, I mean, you have Deshaun Jackson. You're just going to have to brace the fact that that guy's going to be injured for 6 games in the year. And there's not really much you could do about it. But when he's healthy, Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, O.J. Howard, the Brake kid is good. I like him. He's solid. He's actually like the leading receiver of the team yesterday, but doing at this point. Touch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio, noogaradio.com. Last thing of the day, Broncos Chiefs in a game that's very much pivotal for the Chiefs. They've lost 2 games in a row after winning 5 games in a row. And in order to stay ahead in the division, to shut the door on basically everyone else in the division, because the more the Chiefs lose, the more they give life to somehow the Chargers, and the more they give life to the Broncos, who are 3-3 right now and not looking a lick of good. Trevor Siemian looks lost, looks absolutely lost. 8 touchdowns and 7 interceptions this year. When you look at all of that stuff and you go, well, the Chiefs haven't looked great either. People are starting to figure out things about their defense. People are starting to figure out Kareem Hunt a little bit. But I think the Chiefs win this game. Vegas has them as a 7-point favorite, which is like they have no belief in the Chiefs at all. Because they're just getting that 7 because they're the home team. This could probably be even closer. But I don't see it as being that close. I honestly think that the Chiefs figure this out and blow the Broncos away. Unless for some reason you believe and actually believe that Trevor Siemian is going to rise up and give us one of those great Trevor Siemian games, which those great Trevor Siemian games always happen in the first 2 weeks of the season, and then he's never good again. Right? Like, this is the thing with Trevor Siemian. He's giving you all that he's capable of giving you. He's just a very limited football player in that regard. He's not particularly dynamic with his legs. He's not particularly dynamic with his arm. He is very, very smart, but because of the nature of football, when he makes bad decisions, he tends to collapse in on himself, and he doesn't make smart decisions all the time. So to me, this game is actually about to be a very big indicator as to why it is that the Broncos, who have invested so heavily in defense, need to realize this is still an offensive team's league. You have the defense. Now figure out the quarterback part, or you're not going to be successful. You're not going to another Super Bowl pretty much ever. But with that said, I picked the Chiefs to beat the Broncos tonight. Game is in about half an hour. Clutch with Keon Rose here on Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com on 92.7 FM. Thank you for joining me today. And remember, folks, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch, and I'll see you in 24 hours.
The Tennessee